The monad consciousness can be potential, actualized, passive, activated, self-active, latent, subjective, and objective. The monad's potential consciousness is awakened to life, is actualized in the cosmos. Once actualized, consciousness is at first passive, is activated in the process of evolution until it becomes increasingly more active in the vegetable and animal kingdoms, becoming self-active in the human kingdom, and thereby acquiring consciousness of itself as its own self. By monad is meant the individual as a primordial atom, and by self, the individual's consciousness aspect. The term self also applies to those envelopes in which the monad has acquired self-consciousness, with which the self identifies itself, at the time regarding them as its true self. The self is the center of all self-perceptions. Attention indicates the presence of the self. One must distinguish between self-consciousness, individual consciousness, self-consciousness in the envelopes, collective consciousness, and ultimate self-consciousness. Technically, cosmic, solar systemic, and planetary consciousness can be distinguished. Since the ultimate components of the universe are primordial atoms, the cosmic total consciousness is an amalgamation of the consciousness of all primordial atoms, just as the ocean is the union of all drops of water, the closest analogy possible. The most important insight is that all consciousness is at the same time collective consciousness. This is so because there is no personal isolation, although only those who have acquired essential consciousness, 46, can live in the collective consciousness. There are innumerable kinds of collective consciousness: atomic, molecular, aggregate, world, planetary, solar systemic, and, after these, different kinds of cosmic consciousness. The higher the kingdom attained by the monad, the more is embraced by this collective consciousness, in which the self, with its self-consciousness preserved, experiences other selves as its own larger self. Or, to put it differently, all consciousness in the whole cosmos constitutes a common, inevitable, indivisible unity, in which every individual has a smaller or greater part, depending on the level of development he has attained. Just as a higher kind of matter penetrates lower kinds, so a higher kind of consciousness apprehends lower consciousness. On the other hand, a lower kind cannot apprehend a higher kind, which always appears non-existent. The capacity of consciousness increases with each higher atomic kind in a progressive series, the products of which are squared. Thus 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 4 is 16, 16 times 16 is 256, and so on. When the monad has attained the highest divine kingdom, and has thereby acquired a full cosmic collective consciousness, it no longer needs any envelopes in which to develop consciousness. Then, for the first time, it will know itself to be that ultimate self which it has always been. Until then, it has identified itself with one or other of its envelopes. It is thus not to be wondered at that the ignorant search in vain for their selves, and many of them, indeed, deny that there is such a thing. All forms in the whole cosmos, also those in the highest divine kingdoms, are only envelopes for primordial atoms, the selves. The forms which we call soul, spirit, God, etc., are the envelopes which the self uses at its different stages of development. The different kinds of consciousness also include subjective and objective consciousness, self-consciousness in the individual's different envelopes, super and subconsciousness, the memory, and the individual's experiences of the expressions of the will. Consciousness is subjective. Sense perceptions, feelings, and thoughts are subjective. Everything consciousness apprehends outside itself is material, and thus objective. Sense is objective consciousness, the apprehension by consciousness of objective material reality in all worlds. Objective consciousness is subjective apprehension of a material object. Distinction is made between physical, emotional, mental, causal, etc. sense. Reason is the faculty of imagination, abstraction, conception, reflection, deduction, judgment, etc. Reason is the instrument for working up the content of sense. Reason can subjectively perceive vibrations, a hunch, etc., long before sense can refer them to material reality. But it is not until sense has begun to function that you can speak of knowledge. At mankind's present stage of development, most people, in their organisms, can be objectively conscious only in the lowest three states of aggregation, 49.5 to 7. Objective consciousness of material forms in higher molecular kinds has been given the vague term clairvoyance. Everything that is subjective has its objective correspondence. Every feeling corresponds to the consciousness in an emotional molecule, every thought to a mental molecule, every intuition to a causal molecule, etc. The kind of matter indicates the kind of consciousness.